Since Ainsley's college interview in the Season 2 premiere, the character's undergraduate journey has largely taken a back seat to the offshore drilling chaos that's plagued most of Landman Season 2 so far. That admissions interview, full of jokes about Ainsley's ignorant bliss and airheadedness, was one of the funniest scenes that Sheridan's ever written. But it isn't this penultimate episode that Ainsley returns to make her way to college. It's a shame because there's a lot of unmined potential for humor in Landman with her character. That's why it feels a bit rushed in episode 9 when Ainsley meets her TCU roommate. A hodgepodge of every kind of personality you would never expect to find in a Landman character. Unfortunately, Landman leaves Paige isolated as a form of punishment. Angela comes back to remove Ainsley from the TCU dormitories and secures her an apartment for the semester. She simply does not appreciate herself, Angela remarks regarding Paige. Rather than addressing the aspects she dislikes, she attributes the blame to others. With that, it seems the chapter on Paige's narrative is likely concluded. I am uncertain whether the penultimate episode of Landman Season 2 required an elaborate metaphor for Sheridan's perspective on the left, yet we certainly received one regardless. 40 minutes into episode 9 of Landman, Sheridan ultimately takes decisive action. With only one episode remaining before the finale, much of our time has been spent wandering through a college dorm that Ainsley will not even inhabit. Therefore, as the offshore rig is launched, Tommy finds himself facing an even greater nightmare than sharing a living space with a vegan ferret enthusiast. Paige, pronounced like the godless religion, as Ainsley inquires, is a somewhat off-putting sports medicine student characterized by short ginger hair and a more masculine build. As Ainsley puts it, you would make a very strong base for a pyramid. Paige identifies with they/them pronouns, follows a vegan lifestyle, prefers that Ainsley refrain from playing music loudly in their room, possesses a pet ferret that they manage to keep in the dorm, and generally asserts that their dorm room serves as a personal safe space for their mental well-being and meditation, over which Ainsley has no authority. Sheridan, however, does provide Ainsley with a humorous remark regarding pronouns for a change. She tells Paige that she is going to let they meditate and I'll see they later in a sincere effort to accommodate her new roommate's preferences. Unexpectedly, Tommy's dismissal is not the concluding cliffhanger prior to the finale. Instead, we conclude with Cooper, who visits Ariana at the bar after a long day at work. When he cannot locate her, a sense of dread envelopes him. He arrives just in time to prevent a would-be assailant from harming her in the alley behind the bar, delivering a beating that leaves the attacker on the brink of death. The final scene is captured by a security camera, confirming that the entire incident is recorded. Unless this individual is of significant importance, such as the mayor of Midland, this situation involving a scoundrel receiving a beating for attempting to assault an unsuspecting bartender appears straightforward. However, who can say for certain? This is how Landman Episode 9 concludes before the finale. Cooper comforting Ariana, the bar's owner calling the authorities, and the assailant lying on the ground, battered and complaining, "I'm hurt." The scene starkly contrasts with the episode's beginning, which framed Episode 9 as a more family-oriented narrative about taking your daughter to college. Instead, a largely impressive season of Landman, which featured Sheridan's finest work just weeks ago, opted to shift direction and incorporate all their wild ideas that seemed out of place into the final episode before the finale. Dismissing Tommy is thrilling enough. Sheridan did not need to introduce gender politics and an unnecessary sexual assault, which have been points of criticism for his shows in the past. It felt peculiar how long it took to finally leave Tommy's residence in that opening scene. Now, I wish we had never departed. We will discover the implications of it all next week when a now unemployed Tommy Norris returns without any land to oversee.